Hello and welcome to the final Scoutcast of the season from Fantasy Football Scouts. My name is Joe.
And my name is Andy.
Andy, welcome. What is coming up on this season review special?
I can't believe it's gone so quickly, Joe. It doesn't feel like that long ago we were doing the first one.
And every single game week has been as enjoyable as the next.
It has. It has. Every single one.
Every one has been magic.
So tonight we've got a quick recap of game week 38 because it was a banging last game of the season. It really was. Last week of the season. We're going to look back on our seasons. We're not going to go into great detail because people don't want to know about our specific ones, but we'll just have a talk about how our seasons have gone. Then we're going to talk about the lessons that we've learned this year, which I think is what most people want to do. They want to look back and think, have I learned anything from this year? We've also, I know you have put out a tweet for the community to say, have you learned any lessons? So we're going to talk about a few of those as well.
We've got loads of replies, loads of lessons.
Yeah, it's good actually.
Which says something about the season.
They're not silly lessons either, are they? Like people really have gone, okay, this specific thing I just need to make sure I work on next year, and that's how you get better.
Only picking defenders with blue shorts, that kind of thing. None of that. No room for that this week.
Reece James. Some stats to consider. So we are going to have a look at kind of who's underperformed, who's overperformed this year. Going to look at the best value players and also talk about the importance of players and the bonus points magnets, because these are all people that actually you can take into next year as long as nothing drastic changes. Especially bonus points are a really good one because you're like, oh, I didn't realize they were quite so good for bonus. So it's a good one to look at. We're going to quickly touch on the community team and then we're going to have some quick fire questions at the end as well.
He's been in touch. We're going to say before we reveal how amazing we've done with the community team, the guy whose team that we are managing on his behalf, he's thanked us for it for ruining his record, but he said it was really good because he just couldn't handle doing it. He couldn't do his team, and so he feels much better now. Stress levels down, and
he's going to take it back.
And he's taken one look at what we've done with it and said, right, I'll have that back.
To be fair, this has been a year it's been a stressful year for the majority of managers. So if it meant that we took it over for him this year and now he can come back a stronger manager next year, then I feel like we've done something good.
Yeah, it's possibly not the best of years to take over someone's team, but
No. Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is quickly look back on our game week 38, when I guess and how it helped or didn't help with our final ranks. But we both had really good game weeks, and I had a valiant attempt to get into the top 100k. Missed out by a whisker. I actually missed out by a player, a transfer made, a few points. Not too bad, but let's go with you first, Andy, because you can tell us your players, who did well, what your score was, and how it contributed to the rank that everyone can see on the screen, which is your final rank, which is 52,923.
Yeah, so I dropped, obviously, the last 2 weeks. I dropped from 13k down to 65k. So I wanted to try and finish on a green arrow and get as close to 50k as possible, basically, which I think I did fairly well with, to be perfectly honest. I knew I was going to get Tony in, which turned out to be not a very good move in terms of the outcome, but I thought they were going to do quite well against Leeds. So I wanted to get Tony in for Ings, and then it was all about who I dropped Coutinho for. It turns out Coutinho obviously scored, so I did take a hit as well. So I could have kept Coutinho, but I was looking at it and thinking I either want Mount or Maddison. It came out we had an early leak that Maddison was definitely playing, and so I just went for him. I just went for the certainty of he's definitely playing. He's in a team that has been playing the same team over and over again. They're in some rhythm, whereas Mount in a team where there's going to sound like there's going to be a lot of changes. So I just went with Maddison, and in the end, it turned out to be a really good idea because obviously I think I probably would have finished low 50,000, I think, if I hadn't have done that. So yeah, in the end, I had Ramsdale in goal, Laporte and Cancelo, who've been really disappointing for me the last couple of weeks, to be perfectly honest. I had James Robertson, who's just been an absolute hero since I ditched Trent. And then I had Kulusevski, Son and Kane, who got me, near on 40 points between them, which was quite good. Maddison, Saka, and then Tony as well. So I finished on 87, which was 83 after my hit. To be fair, I think I was more than happy with the fact I finished on a green arrow. It's just a shame I was out of the top 20k in the last kind of 3 weeks. But there you go. I'll take 52k and move on.
Just seeing someone in the chat is just saying, is there voice on a delay for everyone? Are our voices on a delay? But if anyone's saying that, do... Oh, no, he just says message retracted. So our voice is clearly not on a delay.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay. Yeah, so I think, just from your final score, it's good to end the season on a green arrow. It's good to end the season on a really good result as well. Kulusevski, Son, Maddison, Kane, have I left anyone out? All double-digit hauls. So you've got 4 players with exceptional scores, and your captain one of them. I mean, that's a great week in anyone's book. And so, you finished just outside the top 50k, so 52.9k. But the thing is, you gave yourself the best shot of getting that in the final go. And as we'll talk about a bit later, I mean, essentially it was the KDB triple captaincy that did us in. If we didn't own him, we didn't captain him for that double game week 36. It was a huge... I mean, I went from 65k to 120k that week. I mean, you went, what was it, 13k?
I went 13 down to about 50.
That's the difference between trying to get into the top 10k to try and get into the top 50k.
There's a few little things that happened as well. I didn't own Son. I think those people that held on to Salah and didn't get Son, which was me, and Son just continued to kill it. And I kept saying on the live stream, I was like, he's got the same stats as Kane. I don't expect it to carry on, and it did. And there you go. Happens, doesn't it? I think a few people are saying
you're out of sync, but then a lot of people are saying no delay here, audio all good. So it's possible that just those people are out of sync. But other people are saying you're all fine. So all's good. Okay, well, let's have a look at my team then. So yeah, I finished well, 82. I gave myself the best shot of trying to get into the top 100k, which we were talking about last week. We had someone who was like 12k and wanted to get in the top 10k, and my advice was don't do anything drastic. You know, captain Son. If you haven't got him, get him in, or Kane, one of those two. And then, you know, and see where you are. And that if they'd have followed that advice, probably would have got them somewhere, hopefully. So I was similar, but slightly lower down the rankings. So I was going into this at 119k. My ambition was to get top 100k, and that's a tall order. And I almost did it. I was absolutely so whisker. So I finished at 100k and 1,923rd. So I was possibly a couple of extra transfers made during the season and a point or two away from that. Talking, you know, hundreds there. So that was quite sad. But at the same time, I can't complain, because I never thought I was going to get there. Trying to make up 20k in the final week.
But what do you do now?
I can't say. I've never.
Do you cease to exist
I can't. You know what? You know when we sometimes do these videos during the summer where the fixtures are out and the games launch, and they you know, Az or someone will interview one of us. So you know, how's your team doing? And I remember last summer I was presented as you know, whatever, Joe, you know, but never finished, and it said on the, you know, on the thumbnail on the YouTube, never finished outside the top 100k. So I can't use that anymore. Do you know what they're gonna have to say now? 7 top 10k finishes. It's not the same. It's not the same, is it?
That's it.
Not the same.
That's it. You know what this is, don't you?
What?
This is rank karma for last week.
So on my video, it's going to say 7 times top 10k finishes, or 6 top 5k.
Yep.
But and what's it going to say on yours, do you think?
Mine's going to say 5 top 100k finishes.
There we go. That's what they'll that's what they'll go for. So on to game week 38 still. Just finish this off. I got Tony in.
No, get past this.
I love the narrative of Tony, and it didn't work out. So go for that. So I swapped out Richarlison for Tony, so that's fine. I had Dubravka in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Cancelo, Rudiger, and I'll come back to him in a sec, Kulusevski, Saka, Son, who I captained, De Bruyne, who got me an assist, Tony, nothing, and Nketiah got me a goal. And benched Ben Davies. So if I played Ben Davies over someone, I might have snuck in to the top 100k. The player I want to mention is Rudiger, because I finished with a bit of jam, a slice of jam, in that I thought I saw he had these clean sheet points. I thought he was going to be removed. I hadn't seen that he'd been subbed out, and he kept his maximum bonus. So he ended up with nine points, and I thought I was heading for like 2 or something. So I'm quite pleased with that. We'll move on to lessons learned. So enough of Game Week 38. Enough of this season. And I want to thank everyone for joining us in the live chat. Thank you in advance, those who are listening and watching. Thanks to George Wade, Steve Sedman, FPL Gaza, who's been once again doing sterling work with some great videos and photos of us looking absolutely splendid before this show. I think I'm in Dirty Dancing this week, and which is great.
Yeah. And you made sure nobody put baby in the corner.
No, I was indeed having the time of my life. Bernardo, Business Cat, Drew Shape, Crypto FPL. I think I saw Praz in there as well. Tony D, and Frode, if I haven't mentioned him already. And Red or Dead 69, FPL Spartans. I'm just going up. Kerim, Peter, John, and many more. Thanks so much for.
Josh Castle has just joined us, who is saying hello from Australia.
Really? Hello, Josh. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at some stats and some lessons learned, and that's all coming up. But before we do that, there was a tweet that intrigued me, which was by someone called Sal Vetri, who I think's involved in fantasy sports media in some way. And he asked people on Twitter on the best fantasy football league punishment. So it's a good job we don't have a Scoutcast one. Otherwise, I might have to do one of these because Seb finished much higher than both of us. So that me with the more than a wooden spoon. So I'll just read some of these out. And so this is what luckily I missed out on. One of the punishments was to take a blow-up doll on a public date, and they must involve a table for 2. So you couldn't just stash the doll, in the in your handbag.
I mean, we've all done that though, haven't we?
Yeah, we've all got a table for 2 for that.
It's not a punishment.
Get a tattoo designed by the winner of the league, and it must be visible in a swimsuit. Eat 77 hot dogs. Well, I don't think I would mind that. Well,
I think, did I see that one as well, where it had to be the 7 hot dogs a day? Or
it wasn't just 7 hot dogs. It was just have 250 tomatoes thrown at you. Run for 40 yards while the others in the league shoot you with paintball guns. So there's some ideas there. So we're not going to do that ourselves, but anyone watching might want to.
Well, we'll have to do a punishment for next year, won't we?
Let's move on to lessons learned.
Indeed.
Let's move on to lessons learned. You can kick this off.
Yes. Yeah, so we were talking a little bit, like we said at the beginning of the show, about what lessons have you learnt from this season. And it's really weird. I've got 2. One of them contradicts the other one, though. So I'm going to go with it. So I'm going to go with the one that doesn't contradict first. And my first one, and actually I said this at the beginning of this season, and I followed it pretty much the whole season. And then when it got to the end, I kind of went away from it. And one of my biggest lessons I've learnt this season, because it worked really well, was to keep things simple. Just don't. Sometimes I think we get so much information and so much content, and there are so many great managers out there that we see snippets of, and we don't understand their whole gameplay, and we try and maybe copy bits, or we try and take all this information in and try and put it into practice, and it just sometimes doesn't work. And there are times where people were overloaded, like double game week with Watford. People had Josh King and Dennis for a bad team, and it was little things like that. We just think, yeah, exactly. No, I did as well. And it's you kind of look at it again afterwards and just think, bad team. Do I really want these players from a bad team? And it's just little things like that where I feel like almost putting a post-it note up on my desk and saying, just think every time before you do a transfer, Come on, think simply. If you were 10 years old, would you do this move?
And it's also came after a succession of COVID postponements. So all of us were just using hits all the time because we just couldn't get the players out, couldn't get teams out. We using hits. Some people use. I mean, I use my chip. Well, I'll come to this a bit later, but use my chips early. So mentally, we're all in the mindset of just like, well, okay, Watford double game week. They've got 2 strikers that might get me returns. I'm even going to captain one of them. Let's get them in. And I think if we hadn't come off the back of all of those postponements, being hit mad, we might have thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm going to have to remove one or both of these players. I can't sit. I've still got Brozier in my team as a hangover from a bench boost, which was 10 game weeks ago. Never got rid of him. And if I hadn't have wildcarded, Dennis and King probably the same thing. But we should have stepped back and thought about it, shouldn't we?
How many times did we say it though as well? Because I was trying to think simply about the community team. How many times did we look at the community team and there was double Watford, and I was saying to you, we need to get rid because they were in a bad team. And it's little things like that where I've tried my best at times to not literally step back, but figuratively just step back from my team and think, what's just a simple move here that I just need to do? Who's getting points that I don't own? And it's little things like that where I just thought, I did it a lot for the first 20 to 25 game weeks. That's how I played the game mainly, was just, come on, let's just think sensibly. Who's got the nice fixtures coming up? Who's a good player that I want in my team? And if I ever had a choice between somebody that was looking good, but had good fixtures over somebody that I just know is a good player, I'd usually go for that good player because then I'd be happy with them in the future, if that makes sense. So it's... I think that was one of my big lessons from this year, is that keeping it simple can really work, because a lot of the time this is actually a simple game and we're just trying to make it more complicated.
And also with all the postponements and all the double game weeks, I've never known a season with so many double game weeks. You usually get couple of big ones, maybe a small one, but it was like every week. And so what you've just been talking about there is it does cloud your judgment a bit, and some of us should have stepped back. So another example of that is Jared Bowen. Sensational season. Came back from injury. Sensational still. Single game week player. No double game weeks. We all ignored him. You get double digit returns every week. 10 weeks ago, if we'd have all... Well, not if we'd all got him in, but if one or two of us got him in, what a differential he would have been.
I know. It's because he didn't have double game weeks. I even tweeted it saying he doesn't have any double game weeks, but we should all be getting Bowen in. And it is, but I was never getting him in because he didn't have any double game weeks. And he was never even on my short list of players that I thought about getting in because he didn't have them. So it's little things like that. But it's very, very easy to say that after the fact, obviously. I'm not saying that because, people should have done it because I didn't do it. I just mean sometimes thinking about it simply and just taking a step back, it is the best way to play this game. And that's just how it goes. My other lesson
make it more complicated
is actually, like I said, no, it's not actually. My other lesson is I don't know whether you can take any lessons from this season, which sounds silly, but this season has been so weird and so different. And when we got to the halfway stage and there were all these postponements, people were saying back then, people will forget about this at the end of the year. People will forget just how badly people have been affected by it. There were people that were activating free hits, activating wildcards, bringing in triple Everton, and then all of a sudden they didn't have a game week. At one point, I brought in James Maddison, and then his double game week got taken away. And it's little things like that people don't take into account by the end of the season. Some people, I benefited at times from the double game weeks and the postponements happening because I had triple Arsenal and they had loads of games that they were playing, and I feel like you can't beat yourself up too much on this year, and you can't look at it and think I should have done this, I should have done that, because actually there's not a lot you could have done about some of these circumstances. You can beat yourself up when you made a bad decision, but you can't beat yourself up if there's postponements that you can't plan for. So I think people have to remember back to how bad it was halfway through this season and just think it's okay, let's get over it, because this has been the biggest asterisk season for me, way more than any of the other COVID
and
years.
I obviously completely concur with you. I would look at my rank.
Exactly.
No, it is though.
But it is. So they're my two lessons. Keep it simple and don't worry too much about this year, and just go strong again next year.
I think so. Well, I mean, I'll put in my notes before I've got a couple here, but a similar thought to you there is I'm written not going to beat myself up too much about the specifics of this season. extreme COVID postponements, and no viable strikers as well. So the gradual decline of the striker in FPL reached a head this year, where there was whole periods where literally we didn't want anyone. And then, gradually by the end of the season, it's like, oh, Kane's okay. Or, at times Ronaldo had been okay. And we've also had the likes of, say, Tony for periods, or Ollie Watkins. But, basically we could do without them. And so that's an anomaly as well, because we spoke a couple of weeks ago, we're going to get Haaland in. There's a whole bunch of teams that are going to change strikers that haven't had strikers. So, for example, Liverpool. Are there going to be any reclassifications there? Also, will they get a new player in who's actually more of a striker? So Firmino is their striker. Is he really? And so on. So you're going to get teams like Chelsea, another one. Are they going to get a striker in? And then you've got all the promoted teams.
Arsenal will.
You've got the likes of Mitrovic as well. Will he actually do it on the Premier League? And you're suddenly going to have more people, more managers wanting more strikers. And so,
yeah. I know a lot of people have been talking about changing these midfielders to strikers, but I think naturally the game's going to do it anyway. I feel like you said, Haaland's going to be there, Solanke's going to be there, Mitrovic is going to be there. We've got Arsenal will get a striker, whether it's Osimhen or Jesus. City will have Haaland. Man United might get a striker as well, like Darwin Núñez, someone like that. So all of a sudden, there are now 6-7 more options, and you've got players like Callum Wilson that are still there, that have obviously had a good end. Tony's still a good player as well. So I think naturally we're going to get more strikers next year.
And I hope they don't go the way that Sky has gone. Sky's gone the other way. Everyone's a striker. Salah, Mane, Son, Kane, everyone. A whole bunch. Anyone you can imagine that is vaguely attacking is a striker in that game. So there's no midfield. It's like Højbjerg on his own in midfield, and
exactly.
There's a middle ground. My first lesson is partly around the chips. There's not going to be so many chips. Hopefully, there won't be any surprise chips midway through, and but it's to use chips and transfers more offensively, aggressively than defensively. So there were a lot of time. My real downfall this season has been over that December, January time, the big COVID time. I had some bad luck in that a lot of my players happened to get COVID. I mean, you can't, deal with that. But it was the way I dealt with it. That was the downfall bit. So I'm not blaming the luck bit. How I dealt with that. So for example, Seb was in a similar position. Now, fortunately, it came at a time when he was massively busy, and he's a new baby and things. So he just did the basics. He just he made a transfer at the end of the week. Didn't really look into it much. Sometimes didn't make a transfer. Just left it. Captain the best player, and so he didn't use his chips then. He didn't use loads of transfers then, and that is the best way to have dealt with that, because players like him can then use their chips and their transfers much more aggressively. They can target changes in when you're looking at the fixture ticker. You can alter your team around that with transfers, and indeed use chips for those double game weeks. So that's the lesson I'll learn because we're always going to have double game weeks whenever it is, but we're not going to get as many. Is to hold, not necessarily hold on the chips for the sake of it, but to use them properly. And I mean that more aggressively. So we were talking at the beginning of the show about KDB and his huge Game Week 36 haul. Now, free hitters, those who had their free hit, which wasn't us, those who had their free hit, if we had a free hit, we'd have got KDB in. We might not have captained him. We'd have got him in though, because he's what
I wouldn't have captained him.
I mean, I've got him in my team now as the season ends, and he's a great player and get double-digit hauls, and he's got a double game week for a team that's great fixtures. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But it didn't, because there's no room for him, because he didn't have the free hit left, because he'd used it because I only had like 3 players playing in 1 week in January or something. So I think I would have got much more points by saving those chips. Just accept it. I've got 8. I can only get 8 players out this week. So be it.
Yeah.
So be it. And I think that's a lesson I will take over. The other one is something about talismen. Now, I've got loads of stats tables. Some of these we put up.
Talisman.
And I've neglected one. I've neglected my talisman one. My talisman. And
I hate the word
I'm gonna keep saying it,
talisman.
my talisman. Talismen. But the players that are most important to their team. And I've been ignoring that, and it cost me. I can think of one golden moment when it cost me. Example, which was when Manchester United had a double game week. We know what Manchester United season's been in. Mm-hmm. So who did I get in? Well, in my head, then Fernandes is the main man. He is the most important player, the talisman of Manchester United. But I've been neglecting this table, which would have said he's nowhere near it, mate. It's Ronaldo is the man. He's the only one who's going to be capable of scoring. And the difference in points between getting Fernandes in a double game week and not Ronaldo, who then scored afterwards as well, that's another 20, 30 points gone. So you can see where the points have been lost this season. So I've got a table. I'll put it up.
Could we have this table next year? Could we update it every week
now?
to say who the talisman is? Because
can I say talisman?
I think that's quite a good.
Or can I?
No, you cannot. No,
I shall
you
then
cannot.
Call it the most important players.
MIPs.
So what these show me. So what I've done is the cutoff was 40%. So they had to be involved in more than 40% of their team's goals when they're on the pitch. So people are looking at this table now, and I'll talk about it for the podcast listeners wondering why Bamford's at top. Because when he's on the pitch, he's involved in 57% of Leeds' goals whenever he has been rarely on the pitch. So an important player indeed. So I want to keep tabs on this. So for example, if I'd have kept tabs on this, I would have seen that Bruno Guimaraes was in fact Newcastle's talisman, not Chris Wood, who I got in. So I didn't look at this table. So I'm gonna. This is a lesson to learn here. Look at the stats. So I'll read this out again. So this is percentage goal involvement when they're on the pitch for their players. Now I'll just point out all our tables that we've got at the moment. Some of them don't fully have up to date with game week 38's figures in. So if you're looking at it saying, Son's only got that amount of goals, and it's just because some of the figures haven't been updated. But this is for all season, so it doesn't object in, and it hasn't altered the narrative of any of these. So anyway, Bamford is top. Goal involvement, 57% of goals for Leeds when he's been on the pitch. Bruno Guimaraes for Newcastle, 54% of goals. What a talisman. Ronaldo, 52%. Manchester United there. What am I doing with Fernandes this season? Vardy at Leicester, he's still the man at Leicester. 48% of goals, nearly half of goals. Whenever Vardy's on the pitch, he's involved in half of them. Son at Tottenham. I just point out Bergwijn was in fact above Son, but he didn't hit my criteria of starting a certain number of matches. So I've done those that tend to start regularly. Son at Tottenham. Salah at Liverpool, as you would expect. Neil Maupay at Brighton. When we were preparing this, Az had a look at the tables just to check things, and he thought that might have been a mistake, and then he was flabbergasted to reveal that whenever he's on the pitch, Neil Maupay at Brighton has been involved in almost half their goals. So he's a talisman. Richarlison at Everton. I've got this one right. I got him in for a double game week. I didn't mess around with any of your Anthony Gordon rubbish. I went straight in for Richarlison. Ings at Villa. Now, that didn't work out this time, but the principle remains. I still think he would, when he's on the pitch, Danny Ings is a good player. Smith Rowe at Arsenal. Will he start? Well, next season, if he does, the stats say that he's heavily involved in goals and assists whenever he's on the pitch. Shea Adams at Southampton. So it's not what you would have thought it'd be Ward-Prowse, probably, but he's involved in all of the penalties, which is all we remember. But the actual bread and butter goals and assists over the season is Shea Adams. And then finally, Brentford, Tony. So once again, didn't work out in game week 38, but it's worked out, I think, on the whole in many game weeks this season. So you're clearly keen on seeing this a bit more next season.
I think it's quite a good one to look at personally, because like you said, I think especially with players like Ronaldo, because I said this pretty much from halfway through the season, because we'd obviously seen Ronaldo with Bruno quite a lot, was that when Ronaldo plays, it's Ronaldo that everything's about. It's not Bruno. But as soon as Ronaldo doesn't play, it becomes about Bruno again. And we saw in the double game week when Bruno hauled, it's when Ronaldo all of a sudden didn't play and nobody was expecting that. And we saw in the game week when Ronaldo did play, it was Ronaldo that got the hat-trick against Norwich. So it's worth looking at that. Obviously, Vardy's the other one where when Vardy doesn't play, who becomes Leicester's talisman, but when he does play, he is very much obviously their talisman. So it's very interesting.
That's 4 points we could have made up, isn't it? You can see Jamie Vardy was fit for the last few game weeks. People who got him in, people who captained him, they did really well. Yeah.
And this is what I mean about keeping it simple as well. It's, well, who's their player? Who is their player that team tries to get the points out of? And look at Newcastle. I was talking to somebody the other day about Bruno at Newcastle, and is he filling that talisman gap because he is comfortably the best player? And so he is the one that's getting forward. And I'm wondering whether if they do get somebody else that's in that role, someone like Lingard maybe, that's going to occupy that space behind the striker, does that mean Bruno says, that's fine, somebody's quite good now and I can drop back a little bit? And it's then we can track that next year and say, actually, no, Bruno has gone down a bit and now it's someone like Lingard, whoever it is. It's worth saying as well, those two players that are coming up in Mitrovic and Solanke, they are very much a talisman for their teams as well. So, so I think it's worth looking at. I think it's something that we can bring up every week or every other week and say, have a look at this.
As I said, when I put this table here and looked at it, I really wish I'd been keeping tabs on it, because I can already see 2 or 3 mistakes I made by not really keeping tabs on this. Asim Khan in the live chat has said next season Mane would be deadly playing in a central position. Hold that thought. We'll be with you
if he's there.
We'll be with you if he's there. We'll be with you in a minute with Mane.
There's somebody else in the chat, by the way.
Sorry.
Seb
W. Hey team, sorry I couldn't be with you tonight. Just thought I'd pop in and say hey. Hey Seb. So one of my final ones I just mentioned before we got the community ones is more planning, which is the opposite of less planning. And it's from the Meet the Manager with Charmer and with his captaincy matrix that he has. Now you could do this with teams as soon as the fixtures are out. You don't need the players, you just need the teams there. So you're looking at the fixtures, and you're looking at the fixture ticker, the fixture runs there, and you can look at particular players. So, for example, Manchester City are playing the obvious worst defence. You know, say one of the promoted teams come up and they're terrible defence. Manchester City are playing them in game week 10. You can pinpoint that as a KDB one. So you can think, well, I might want to be moving to get KDB in for then, and so on. And there might be several ones where Chelsea are really good. And then you can think, well, do I need to structure here to get, who is their most important player? And looking at that really. So I'm going to take a leaf out of his book. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to look at his one as well, and I'll do the same with mine. And I want to make sure that my team is geared up to get whatever I think be the best or one of the best captains that week. So that's another lesson I will definitely learn there. The community, though, have been asked, haven't they, Andy, for their lessons?
They have. Would you like me to read a few out? So FPL Rank Chaser says, so his lesson learned is don't plan too far ahead due to form changes.
It's the opposite. I put that in there because it's the opposite of my last point.
Well, it's also I think this season was one of those ones where you can't plan too far ahead. I think you literally just had to play the game week in front of you at one point and just hope to get some players that are in that, because if you plan too far ahead, you then didn't get the points when you needed them. And I think that was a fair enough one. FPL Benji says, attack double game weeks with a chip, especially if suddenly announced, can leave rivals behind by being aggressive. It's worth mentioning, there were people that played free hits in game week 36, 37, and they didn't get green arrows. Like, it's still about picking the right players and picking those talismen and things like that. So yes, you can play those chips, but I mean, there's a discussion to be had, and people are probably going to ask us in the chat by the very end as well about bench boost, and maybe we can have a bit of a chat about that later on as well, because that does seem to be the poison chalice chip. Redro says, avoiding pre-deadline team news. So basically not being around for the last hour, so in the run-up to the deadline. I think it does as much harm as good. There's still too much of a risk of dodgy info, even from often reliable sources that think they're doing the right thing. It's the worst time. It's genuinely the worst time, that hour beforehand. And also the hour after. when you've got like loads of fixtures that are on, and it's like, oh, so and so could be out, and it's like you can't do anything. There's literally nothing you could do. You can't fret about it. Like,
I must admit, I do prefer that I do prefer that they move the deadline to an hour and a half before rather than an hour. But I would prefer it if they did. If they just moved it to after the team sheets are announced, so just after that hour, and so you can go up to.
No, I agree.
Because the argument that some people around the world will be disadvantaged. Have a look at the FPL Twitter community. There's people up all hours.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm from so and so in the country. They're up, and if they're and at the moment they're up an hour and a half before the deadline now.
Yeah.
So
I do it for NFL. I get up at 1 o'clock in the morning before the late game to make sure my players are playing. Like it just happens. You just do it.
So I think that would be the best level playing field, and that would be a massive game changer to be able to do that. Yeah. But nevertheless, I prefer the hour and a half to the hour, because the hour one was a nightmare because you were getting all sorts. 5 minutes to go, and many of them were credible, and you couldn't decipher between them, and you've got so little time. At least with an hour and a half, you know that the majority of the credible ones they won't have a clue by then, because they're usually in the media and they've got a team sheet in front of them.
Hitman Phil says, if Salah has a double game week against two bad defences, it's probably best to use a triple captainship. I still stand by it now. On paper, even though with what KDB did, that was the best triple captain opportunity
the Salah
all season.
One,
I still say it now. 100%. Like, and I still say it now, even with what KDB did. I don't expect, if you did that 100 times, I don't expect KDB to do that.
Second hat trick since 2011. And certainly his first 4 goals in the top flight there. So, and I think his other hat trick was in Belgium. So, I mean, that's why. But Salah, he's popping those lads in all the time. So
best player in the game at the time, wasn't he? Ryan, don't be afraid to take hits to get rid of underperforming players, even if their EO is high. Act quickly and get better players instead. Yeah, maybe not for a hit, but I kind of see where it's coming
Game
from.
Week 28, some people remove Salah. For Son, maybe. Golden move, because Salah hasn't been in great form since then as an FPL asset. So, that's...
Yeah. It didn't look a 50-50 decision at the time, though. It felt like a big gamble at the time for the people that did it. Could have easily gone the other way, and obviously it didn't. But for the people that did it, fair play. The thing that I didn't realise, and it was actually Baker from the Above Average pod that highlighted it, and I saw it too late, was that Son was playing differently. Son was being more selfish, and Son was not passing it to Kane when he could do, and that's the difference that I wasn't seeing. And that would have convinced me to maybe get him in a bit earlier. But I still thought it was just going to revert to type, and it was just going to keep going to Kane, and that's just how it happens. FPL Vin and Caveat King, don't let a player's EO impact on transfers. FPL Fungus, don't let the Scoutcast manage your team.
Yep. We'll come to that later.
Daniel, ignore poor teams in a double game week. Yep, 100%. 100%. If they fall to you and you don't have to take too many hits or whatever to get them in, then I think it's fine. But Burnley and Watford, what were we doing? FPL Vin, do not underestimate other managers' knowledge. They are not dumb sheep anymore.
I think so. I mean,
interesting one, that one.
And a golden example of that is engaged managers looked at, we just said about don't get players from rubbish teams, but Weghorst at Burnley, double game week, the first one where we thought he was better than he was, his effective ownership was something like 150, 160%. I mean, when I saw that was when I knew that what FPL Vin has said is true, is that there's tens and tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of managers who are very engaged, who have looked and see who's the main striker at Burnley. He at that time he did have a lot of promise, and his stats weren't too bad. But then by the second double game week involving Burnley, we'd all seen enough. But that first one, and that was when he's right. They're not. You can't dismiss the masses, because the masses are clever clogs now.
And that's why, this top 10k thing, top 100k, that exact cutoff of top 100k.
Well, I'm just going to correct. I'm just going to correct you there.
What good managers do.
It's top 101k. I think you'll find is the cutoff now.
The exact cutoff.
The exact
of
cutoff is
101k. So even if it's like a point,
101.
That is
I think
cutoff.
the exact cutoff is 100k and 923. And I think if you can get that.
Yeah, I'll give you 922. I'll throw you a bone. Conrad says, if life gets in the way of FPL in football, keep it simple. Do the obvious moves and captains. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Rachel, don't break a team to get one player in.
Very, very sound advice.
Jerry, get on templates early. Tic Tacs and Pete Skill, both will see transfers as more precious. Be more considered with them. Do you know what? I had some advice not too long ago, which was treat free transfers as if they're -4s as well. And it'll make you think about things a lot more differently.
Has said a number of times actually on the Scoutcast. Yeah, he's often said that he sees each transfer as and also as a potential -4 you might have to do down the line. For example, when we got Dennis and King in, that's basically that says it's gonna cost you a chip or a -4 to get rid of these jokers.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And Nate Dog says, the allure of being active is too much. I think I tried to see every transfer as a -4 hit and hope that helps next year. Yeah, that's exactly it. Lovely stuff. Okay,
so we've got some more, just while my mouse warms up again. We have got some more stats. So let's put this one up. This is the Underachievers. This is the hold that Mane thought. So once again, this is... with some game week 38 stats included, some not. So, but the basic principle is the same. So one game week's not going to alter this drastically. This is the whole season. Mane should have been involved, according to his expected goal involvement stats, in 5 more goals, either as an assist, a fantasy assist, as in helping a penalty, or a goal. Mane is the one there. There's a number of names in here who've got very low expected goal involvement as well, but they hit the threshold of the XGI delta, as it's known as in being over or under what they were expected to get. So there's a few players like Jensen at Brentford, Solly March at Brighton, Stuart Dallas at Leeds, and Emerson Royale at Tottenham, where they weren't expected to be involved in many goals, and they weren't, but they could have been involved in more than they were, basically. But on this in this table, the key names I think are Mane, who's top of this. Grealish is sort of the next big name. He's been much maligned. I think it's to do with the hair or the calves or whatever, but. His expected goal involvement was over 10, but in fact only scored 3, and he's got 3 assists as well. So there's much more. If he can start, then if he can get game time, he could be a good differential, because not a lot of people are going to go for him next season. Rafinha as well. I mean, this just sums up Leeds season really, but much lower number of goals and assists compared to his expected goal involvement. Gross at Brighton has quietly been excellent all season. This is why Brighton are 9th. Players like Gross really pulling up. Cancelo. How many times have we watched Cancelo this season and thought he's going to score? Well, he should have done. Expected goal involvement well over 11, but not the goals or the assists to match it, unfortunately. So I think the key names are Mane, Grealish, Rafinha, Cancelo. They're the players I will be keeping an eye on next season, because if they can deliver on this underperformance, they could be interesting.
Yeah, I think Grealish not so much for me, but I think the Mane one, it'd be interesting to see whether they keep Mane and Salah, because they're both fighting for contracts at the moment and both making a lot of noise, and I get the impression one of them's going to go. So it'd be interesting to see which one. Mane is the unsung hero of the league. He really is so good, but obviously Salah gets all the praise.
Their price has been too similar. So Mane, if Mane comes in at 11.5 and Salah's 13, probably, I wouldn't say definite, but I would very much consider Mane and save that 1.5 million.
Thing is, like they've got 4 incredible assets, haven't they? They've got Trent, Robertson, and then Mane and Salah. Don't get me wrong, that's without even considering Jota, Matip, Van Dijk. Like, yeah, exactly. So, but they've got those four that have got the history, and they know, we know that they're going to consistently perform. But they should have made Mane an option. They should have made him, like, even 10.5 makes it all of a sudden you're thinking, whoa, like, I could really go for this. And then people might start having Salah, Mane and Trent, and then all of a sudden it makes it just that bit more exciting. Whereas I just think it was too easy to get Robertson, Trent and Salah this year, as opposed to Mane, who should be an option. 15 goals, like, he's an incredible asset when he plays.
It's even more than that, because I think actually, yes, no, it could be. I'm not sure if that's included game week 38. But either way, the principle's the same. He could have been involved even more.
Rafinha will be interested to see where he goes. I haven't heard a lot of rumblings about where he could be going yet, to be honest, or whether he's even going to stay in England. But we know he's got it. He's an absolutely class player, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. And Cancelo, I mean, he's probably the best right back, left back in the league, isn't he? In the world.
Price-wise, he finished the season on 7.2. Historically, they tend to go with similar to the price that they end up on.
Yeah.
So Cancelo, I would say 7 minimum. I mean, I would not rule out 7.5. We've had 8 million defenders before.
Because what we're going to have, Trent's going to be 8.
Yeah.
8.5. Robertson will be 7.5. Cancelo 7.5. Reece James 6.5. Chilwell 5.56. Like, all of a sudden, there's quite a few premium defenders, isn't there? Van Dijk 6.5. Matip a bit.
And that's interesting with say Chilwell, because he's been injured for a lot of the season. But in all the stats tables, when we put our attacking defenders stats tables up, he's always when you do it last 4 matches they have played, he's always still at the top of it.
So I got asked this, and I thought it was quite good. If Trent was 8.5 and Robertson was 7, who would you go with?
I'm a massive fan of Robertson anyway. And a hero for my team in the final game week as well. Goal. Oh yeah, there's that bigger gulf between the two. I'm sorry, Alexander Arnold.
And if Reece James was 6.5 and Chilwell was 5.5, who would you go with? Yeah, see, that's the same as me. I go with the cheap ones,
definitely. I think. And I wouldn't necessarily rule out, say, for example, Rudiger I've had for a number of weeks, on and off actually, and he's been a great player. Popping in with the odd goal, getting the bonus. So I think, and obviously the clean sheets whenever they don't concede. So I don't rule out those sort of Van Dijk type moves. If Cancelo, Robertson and Alexander Arnold are, punitively tough prices to get to, you just can't get to them, then I don't see a problem with a bit of a Van Dijk or so.
Before we go on to the next bit, by the way, I think the sun is just creeping in a bit, and I can't see you very well.
I told you about this before it came on. There you go. The sunshine, the summer is so bright. Look, this is See that Somerset, it's like being in the sun at the moment. Okay.
Exactly.
Is that okay now? Hopefully everyone's... I mean, I'm pretty much closed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All good.
No more sun in. Anyway, those players to look at here. Here's the overachievers. So this sums up the De Bruyne surprise hat-trick. 4 goals in game week 36. He's been expected goal involvement. He's in fact been involved in getting on for 10 more goals than he was expected to have been. So that's how much of an anomaly that was. The other thing to note with all of these tables here, the likes of Son, Vardy, for example, they are so clinical that you would expect them to be an overperformer. They're always overperformers. That doesn't necessarily mean that what happened this season will never happen again. They're always on this table. Son, Vardy, they're always there. So, but nevertheless, Son is second here. Well over 8 goals he's been involved in that he wasn't expected to. Mount has actually overperformed. So we want to talk about Mount, and so he should have been. He's been involved in 6.5 more goals than he should have done. Maddison as well has been. Has had a very good season. I mean, time will tell whether this is going to be a trend over seasons, but it's possible that he overperformed here. So he's going to get a good price hike, but he might not do it next season. Vardy, he's always here. So Maddison could end up being a Vardy. Barnes as well. A lot of Leicester players. Barnes as well. He's been involved in well over 5 more goals than he was expected to have been. Robertson at Liverpool, we were just talking about. He's had an exceptionally good season. He's when he's been shooting, it's gone in basically. He's scored more than 5 goals over what he was expected to. Reece James too, another one. Salah. With Salah, it's the sheer quantity. His expected goal involvement is getting on for 30, and obviously with a huge number of assists and goals there, he's done really well there. But it's just the sheer quantity. When you start seeing Salah's just quantity of shots and chances drop markedly, then we know he's definitely off the boil. Bowen, sensational season, but been involved in getting on for nearly 5 more goals than he wasn't expected to. And there's that Brentford Jensen there as well, but his expected goal involvement's quite low. Interesting. I know when Seb's been on, he's had quite a lot to say about over and underperforming stats, and with certain players you have to take them with a pinch of salt. For players like Son, for example, he just always overperforms every year. He will for the rest of his career. So what do you say at the end of his career? You just got lucky, mate, every season.
Yeah. It's an interesting list. I cannot see anybody owning De Bruyne next year, because I don't think you're going to be able to afford him with Haaland, and you're going to be wanting to cover, Son and a Liverpool player. So I think De Bruyne is going to be very low owned next year, because until Haaland gets injured, and then De Bruyne has to step forward a bit. I think Bowen's the most interesting one on this list. What an incredible season he had. Like, genuinely an incredible season. 17 assists he had, which is just, it's unbelievable levels. And it's whether he can do it next year and what price he comes in at, because I think he did overperform this year, but West Ham are playing to his strengths, and he's become their talisman, hasn't he? And I'm looking at him and thinking he's probably going to be 8.5 next year.
Yeah, and also depends if he moves to. Now, Klopp has been in for him for a couple of seasons, whether they actually get their man. And he goes to Liverpool and he's 8.5. It's a different story. If he's 8.5 at West Ham and he's overperformed this season, I'm not quite sure.
I don't think I'd like him more at Liverpool though. I can't see him playing every game.
Myself and many others had Jota early on in the season. He was around that, wasn't he? 8.5. And he didn't play every game, but great. When he's on the pitch, it's good. And I don't think they would. I'm not saying that Liverpool are going to get him, but I'm just saying that if he did, it would probably because one of Salah and Mane have gone, because I can't see any room for anyone currently with their striker.
It'd be it's genuinely, I think there's a conversation to be had there. I feel like he's going to be one of those people that comes in at 8.5. Nobody will have him because he's too expensive, and then there'll be players out there that just pick their team in 5 minutes, put Bowen in because he had a good season, and he probably carries on. Carries on. Everybody goes,
I think we're all going to have to think about our price structures much more differently. We're definitely going to want to be getting some 8.5 midfielders. We're going to definitely want a premium striker, and then
5 subs next year as well.
And then you've got the likes of KDB, Salah, Mane, etc. There doesn't even, likes of Cancelo and Alexander-Arnold Robertson. We genuinely can't have them all, but that's always the way. That doesn't change with each season. But I think there's going to be even more choice, and there's going to be some really quality strikers this season, I think, or potential. But anyway, so there's the overperformance. Let's have a look at some bonus point kings. So this is the baseline bonus kings of 2021-22. And I've sorted this by minutes per baseline BPS, which is the system they use to calculate the bonus points. And baseline means basically turning up, doing your stuff, passing, tackling, creating chances, all those types of things. It's not involving goals, not involving assists, not involving clean sheets, not involving the things you can actually see while they're getting a bonus. These are the other stuff. And this shows that Reece James is the one here. So if Chelsea can keep a clean sheet, he's got a good chance of getting bonus. If he can get an assist as well, then you're looking at some really good bonus for him there. Thiago at Liverpool, another one as well. So if you fancy going down the route of a sort of defensive midfielder, so it's not going to be for everyone. So Thiago Silva at Chelsea. No. So if he's cheaper, I don't know. If each year he gets older though, so maybe we want one for next season. But Alexander Arnold, this is something we can see every week. We think, Alexander Arnold's. You always see it when you look at the BPS, the bonus points, who's in the running for it towards the end of the game. And if Liverpool have got a clean sheet, suddenly all the defenders go up, obviously. And then Alexander Arnold's at the top. He's looking at 3 bonus points. And that's just because his baseline bonus is so strong here. Darlow at Manchester United. I don't know if he's going to stay. Lanzini at West Ham.
Probably stay, but
when Lanzini is on the pitch, he does the business.
That's because he comes on and scores a worldie and then goes.
But this is without his worldies. This is just turning up and passing it around and stuff. Robertson at Liverpool, another good bonus magnet here, as you expect. If Alexander Arnold is. Højbjerg at Tottenham. So if it's looking like a really dull Spurs game, I mean, fancy Spurs playing in a dull game. But remember a few weeks back, that was them. Højbjerg could be getting something there. If he's cheap, MacArthur at Crystal Palace, 4.3 he's ended up in. So if you're looking for a 4.5 on the bench, these could be your man. And then De Bruyne, he just turns up, looks flash, gets bonus. That's it. So as soon as he gets an assist or something, he's looking at maximum bonus. But
yeah, De Bruyne is ridiculous for bonus. He just racks up those passes, doesn't he? I mean, a lot of these players on this list you wouldn't really consider, would you? But I think just the fact, Reece James, if he can play 30 to 35 games in a season, he's gold. He's absolute gold, and I think he'd be up there with Trent. Really, obviously Trent's got the set pieces over him, but Reece James, he's like a right winger. So he's one that I just hope he can get that game time next year. Trent is obvious. Robertson's obvious, I think, as well. And De Bruyne, like I said, I suppose maybe you are just looking for that bonus, but I just think it would be surprising to see him in a lot of teams next year based on Haaland. But this list provides, sort of cements what we already knew about a lot of these players and why they might be worth their extra money. Yeah. While it's worth paying 6 to 7 million for these defenders. But also for those bench players, we're going to need, 2 or 3 very cheap players in order to fit in everyone else. And so if you want, a 4.5 midfielder to sit on your bench, but they could get you some bonus and they could get a goal or assist, like the likes of Højbjerg. Yeah, if Højbjerg's 4.5, I think it'd be very popular. I think the problem is like Thiago Alcantara for Liverpool. You're never going to want to use that third space up, and Højbjerg's the same. But then Kulusevski's not going to be as cheap next year, whereas it was so easy to have those three. I say,
this is for the bench fodder. This is a player that
But that's what I mean. Like Højbjerg, you wouldn't want it. But someone like MacArthur, I understand that definitely.
Okay, so let's have a look at the best value players. Now, this is we've got this on Fantasy Football Scout in the stats as well, but it's also on the FPL official site as well. So this is really simple. They have just simply divided their cost by their FPL points, and so that comes up with their FPL value. And it was Bowen up until recently, but Matip has sort of edged his way in with the goals he's been getting, but also the clean sheets for Liverpool. And he's also been favoured in the league games as well over the Champions League. So he's been getting a lot of starts. So he is top of this. Then there's Bowen, and then there's Cody, who I should have put in my lessons learned. Never sell Connor Cody. 4.5. I've only kept him all season. I mean, 138 points. Not but 4.7 he ended up on. That's really good. That's really good returns. And I wish I'd kept him. I wish I'd kept him for much, much longer. The odd goal, great on the bench. You need, like over winter, your other players got COVID. Well, Connor Cody to the rescue. Eric Dyer at Tottenham is a bit of a strange one, but he's been great value. Those who got him in. Yeah. Cancelo has been great value, but he's finished the season 7.2. He's going to be 7.5, 8 possibly, 7.5 probably next season. So not so great value. Matty Cash finished the season at 5.3. Could be 5.5, I reckon. but still offering good value. Gabriel at Arsenal. Mark Gahey at Crystal Palace.
Sorry? That Gabriel oh yeah, it's Gabriel. Sorry, I thought it was Martinelli for a second. Yeah, it's Gabriel, isn't it?
And Mark Gahey at Crystal Palace 4.5. If he can stay that way, he offers great value at Crystal Palace. Jansen at Brentford, Van Dijk at Liverpool, great value. I mean, instead of getting your 6.5 midfielder, just get Van Dijk in. He's the one who's providing that sort of per million value there. Laporte, once again, great value. And Saka is finally on the list there, but he's going to be more. So he's got 179 points.
Yeah, he will.
And 6.7 his cost, but he's not going to be 6.7. He's going to be 8 million. So the FPL value is going to have gone. But there's the interesting names on there, the likes of, say, Cody for your bench, Matty Cash, if he can stay around the 5 million mark, Owen possibly, Matip, and Cancelo, but I don't know. Cancelo and Saka, they're just going to be more, so they're not going to be value anymore, but others could be.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously it's always different names every year. That's the problem. And it's always defenders, and this is when people then sometimes go down that trap of I'm going to go 5 at the back, or I'm going to go 4 at the back, and these aren't the players that are going to get you those big game weeks, and that's the problem. Don't get me wrong, they will have good game weeks, but don't fall into the trap of going, right, okay, so Cancelo's good, Cash is good, and all of a sudden you get those best value players at the back and you're left with not a lot up top and in midfield, and you do need those players.
And you made a great point there, because it's not just these player names here, it's these types of players. So it's getting on those 4.5 defenders who have got much more about them, like Mark Gahey or Cody. And so and it's also getting those attacking defenders in, and I think Bernardo just pointed out in the post about Matip, who's actually 4.7 at one point before people noticed him, so that's why he's been such great value. And it's looking at those bargains, and we're going to need them. We're going to need these value players.
And do you know a defender that was top of a lot of these lists last year was Luke Ayling. And Luke Ayling got 60 points this year. Yeah. Leeds had such a hard year, and it just goes to show how they can be such good value one year, and the next year I had him in my game week 1 team, thinking great value, brilliant, 4.5 million. Didn't go quite how we expected.
You have to be careful with those players, but with players like, say, Matip, with Dyer at Tottenham, I mean Gabriel at Arsenal, Van Dijk at Liverpool, Laporte at City. These are players in defences that are good, whereas Leeds, like I guess with my beloved Connor Cody with Wolves, it's not a defence you can rely on. So you've got to look at them with a pinch of salt. Mark Gahey at Crystal Palace. I don't know what the Crystal Palace defence can be like next. So same could be like Luke Ayling, not actually that good value at all.
And I do find as well some of these players, I value them more as a double up than I do as a single, if that makes sense. So Matip, if you have Matip with Robertson, you're absolutely laughing. Whereas if you only own Matip, you're not actually gaining a lot on the other players and things like that. And like Laporte's the same. Laporte with Cancelo is a lovely double up, whereas just Laporte, everybody's going to own Cancelo, so you're not actually gaining a lot. So it's having that double up, I think, then gets you a lot of value as well.
These are just outfield players. The actual list of this, the majority of this top 10 was goalkeepers, because that's the way the value works. And there are usually every season, there's 4 to 5 goalkeepers who will be in this list. And so you're looking for that combination of save points, bonus points, and clean sheets, obviously. And so you're looking for those players. And I think Andy posted something up on Twitter about that, the amount of goalkeepers he's had this season. He's never known a season like it, where he's made so many goalkeeper changes, and that's maybe a lesson to learn. I want to go back to how I used to be. I used to have 2 4.5 goalkeepers. I didn't mess around with whoever. I just got 2 with a 5.5 and a non-playing one. I just got 2 4.5 ones who rotated quite well, and I think it's going to be Dubravka is a goalkeeper I've got my eye on. And he's only been 4.5 because of injuries and an array of goalkeepers at Newcastle before. I can't see him being anything less than 5 million. with Newcastle next season, which is going to be annoying, and I'll be faced with a decision there. But I do like Dubravka a lot. But it's those types of players, cheap goalkeepers, and I haven't put those in. I haven't done a goalkeepers table because I'm sure over summer, we'll find out who the main goalkeepers are in pre-season, and in a future Scoutcast we'll talk about that.
And it's not usually the best defences you want to go for. It's the crap defences with a great keeper.
It's, as I've
Nick Pope and Sarr and people like that, Ramsdale for a while as well. It's the ones that let a lot of the shots in, and they save them. Obviously, Martinez was good for a while as well, wasn't he? So
for about a decade now on the Scoutcast, it's the David James at Portsmouth principle. Great goalkeeper, lots of saves, terrible defence. Schwarzer at Fulham, another classic.
Yeah. And teams that tend to win 1-0 or draw 0-0 because you don't want all the outfield players getting.
When I did look at this, interestingly, Raya at Brentford, I think he will remain at 4.5. The interesting thing is that it's almost immaterial. I say almost immaterial that they don't get clean sheets because their style of play, he's so involved in the build-up play that he gets those passing, and so he can hit those what's needed for the bonus points, and obviously if he makes saves as well. So the likes of Raya. So I'll be looking to see who Brentford rotate with, that kind of thing.
A few people in the chat have said it, and someone that I'm definitely looking at is Dubravka as well. I think I've said it since Eddie Howe took over. At home, Newcastle are a completely different beast, and I expect if you've got a keeper that you'd quite trust at home, I'm even willing to maybe go to 5 mil as well. So it'd be
perfect,
interesting,
isn't it? It's like when Pope at Burnley as well. Often much better at home, and in fact, that's all for all the Burnley keepers. You could have said that over the years, but I mean that's perfect, isn't it? Cheap, good goalkeeper in a team like Newcastle. Play him at home every match. Who do they find out who they rotate with when the fixtures are out, and then hopefully it'll be 4.5, or even if he's 5, I'm going to
I think it'd be 5,
double him up with a 4.5 one. I'm willing to do that, and that's perfect, isn't it? You've just got your goal. You don't have to get 10 goalkeepers all season. But yeah, interesting. I'm gonna. Luckily, my mouse is stopped working. Just as I was about to have a look at the community team. Okay, annoyingly, it's working.
Well, because we don't have bus teams this week, while we look at the community team, do we want to get the questions in now?
If you've got any other further questions, we covered a hell of a lot, I think. But if you've got any more questions about our opinions about next season, about what's going on, and this season and lessons learned, all those things, just anything really, just ask away. Ask anything actually. Free for all. So I'll put the community team up. This is what we ended up with. In the final game week, so it was a bit of a disaster. So we ended with some. So I basically we were around 360k or something, and so took a hit, went for it. Unlike my team or that other team was trying to get in the top 10k last week. It wasn't necessarily play safe. It was just do something that unusual and hope for the best. And so I thought Mane would be a good one. So I got Salah out for Mane. When Mane scored and Salah was benched, that was looking good. But then they pretty much ended up on similar scores there. So I just really went for it. Mane captain. I got Mountain against Watford. I thought it was a player there who's going to get us like 10, 15 points. Let's go for him. And obviously took Coutinho out for him. So Mount blanked and Coutinho scored. So it didn't work out. But we had Kulusevski and obviously Harry Kane. Rudiger as well, but all in all it was a complete disaster. We ended up at 373k. We completely ruined Alex's top 100k every season record. So it's almost like I'm the top 100k curse. I'm bringing them all down. I noticed that Tom I'm on the captaincy video with is outside the top 100k as well, and I was on covered for you one week with Mark for the and he's outside top 100k as well. So I am literally the top 100k curse man. So watch out. Anyway, so it wasn't a good end to it. But yeah, Alex has been in touch and he said and he feels much better now, and he's glad that he didn't have to deal with all the stress that we dealt with the team. We took that off him. So I count that as a win, even if we didn't do so well here. But it's tough.
Yeah.
I've said before, I don't know how people sort of cheat and have two teams, because I struggled to try and do this on top of
I know.
my own one. And I came a cropper a couple of times where I mistook my team for this one.
Yeah.
So with hilarious
happens,
consequences involving one of my wild cards.
So I'm gonna. Sam's asked in the chat as well about what we're gonna do, because the community team won't be here obviously next year. I think that if you're happy for me to do it, Joe, I'm gonna do what I suggested a couple of weeks ago, which was I'm gonna make a new team for Scoutcast, as long as it's the same people on it. By the way, I'm assuming it will be. So I'm gonna make a team for Scoutcast.
The Scoutcast teams. Yeah.
Each of us, the Scoutcast team. And each of us will decide on a move we want to do, and then I'll put it to a poll, and then the community can decide. So we're not going, oh yeah, do whatever you want. It's these are the moves we want to do. The community will decide which one of those we do, and then we'll do it.
Great. So cool. One of them could be take a -4. One of them could be something quite specific, I guess. A take -4, get this player in.
And don't get me wrong, like we could all come up with the same thing. So we could all say, oh, I think that's the best thing to do. And if that's the case, that's the only option, really. But it's I'm sure we'll come up with different things anyway. But I think that's what we're going to do, and we'll see how far we can get.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea, because I like the principle of it, and it's good that that's sort of not a real person or anything. It's just it's like the Scoutcast is a person, so it's not. Yeah,
and maybe. Why don't we try and do a little bit of a league as well? So see how many people can beat that team.
Yes, that'd be really good. We've got lots of ideas. Yeah.
Let us know if you like that idea, Scoutcast listeners, because we do love all of you as well.
So have we got any final Q&A for this season before we come back next season?
Do. So FPL Gaza. Hello, Gaza. Yeah, little smile from baby there. Which two players are definites for your game week 1 team? You're only allowed to pick 2.
Definites?
It's hard to say definites now, isn't it? But
I'm going to give a long answer, but it's basically the 2 premiums of the teams that have the best fixtures. Yeah. So it could be Man City and Liverpool, for example.
I'm going to be hard pressed to not go with Haaland. And if Son is still kindly priced, it'd probably be Son as well. They're probably the 2 that are high up there.
It'll be Haaland and one of Mane or Salah.
Yeah. Stephen Harker, oh god, I've just lost it then. Hang on, where has he gone? There he is. Stephen Harker, you may have answered it earlier. What do you think will be the game week 1 template formation?
Everyone always thinks the previous year will be completely replicated. So everyone's going to be obsessed with big at the back, and they're all going to hate strikers. And there's going to be a lot of 4-5-1s. But I'm personally going to go for 4-4-2, slap bang in the middle, and that says I don't know. That says I definitely want a premium striker. I definitely want the option to get me a Mitrovic, a Watkins, or whatever. I do see lots of value in midfield, and I do think that in order to afford them all, I'm going to have to field a good 4.5 defender early on.
Yeah.
And so I think 4-4-2, I think is the nice middle ground. So you can move to a 3-5-2, you can move to a 3-4-3, and so on. But if you immediately start with, I'm going to go 5-4-1, then that's quite a tricky one to get out of.
I think mine's going to be 3-5-2.
Yeah.
I
think, start with 3-5-2.
I think about it at the moment because, but I think it'll be Haaland and then someone like Dominic Solanke or Mitrovic, someone really cheap next to him, I think. Ian Palmer, what are you going to do in your downtime?
Ooh. Well, luckily I live about 2 minutes from a lovely Art Deco Lido built by the wonderful Clark's family, which Andy might know it. And so I've been already started. So every lunchtime, I'll be going there and having a swim for half an hour.
Nice.
And it's been great.
Very
nice. It was great having a swim in the sunshine today.
I'll have to meet you there.
Yeah, come on down. And so I'm already doing that and doing more things like if I've got less time doing videos here, using that time to do things like exercise or do more work.
Yeah, lovely. FPL Sparta. Me, by the way, family. No, I've got summer coming up, but obviously the FPL season will kick off before, not the FPL season, but the FPL app will kick off before I leave school this year. But apart from that, just family time. Doing loads of jobs around the house. FPL Spartans, of the relegated teams, do you think any Premier League teams would sign their players and we could see them again next year? If so, who?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry,
So of the relegated
which
teams,
of those players will come back
do you
up?
think Premier League teams would buy any of them? Yeah.
McNeil at Burnley. He's going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't. Who else? Oh, Dennis is going to go. Maybe West Ham, I think, are after him, aren't they?
Yeah. I'd love to see Max Aarons go somewhere as well. Really like Max Aarons. I think he's a really good player.
Of the Norwich squad, because they basically are League One and Championship, I think they will stay put. But I think there are some genuine... Tarkowski's going to go. I could see him at somewhere like Everton, something like that.
Nick Pope?
Yeah. I mean, the best players there. A lot of those... Burnley are a proper Premier League side, even though they've just been relegated. But there's a lot of Premier League quality players there. Chelsea less so. Watford's a strange one. They started the season with something like 10 strikers and then couldn't score any goals. So it's hard to put it down.
Ismaila Sarr? He could go somewhere, maybe.
I know. Once again,
there's a few players in there, isn't there?
liked him at Liverpool.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Oh, people are saying they like that idea.
Yeah, it's good.
Because it really will be the community team then.
Yeah.
Praz says, Andy, sometimes you need to do early transfers. Then what? Early transfers as in because of budget?
I don't know whether you're saying it could be early transfers. Yeah, as in I would imagine it would be budget dependent. Because why else would you?
I just think if it's if budget's the thing, we'll just unfortunately not do it. You know, it just well, we were outpriced by it. Let's move on, and that's a good thing to be able to do sometimes as well. So people are saying they love the idea, so we'll definitely do that. We'll do a league and we'll see who can beat the Scoutcast team. Matt Henley, should FPL make a change regarding subs, given the new 5 subs rule?
They're going to have to do something because there's so many players aren't going to get to 60 minutes. It's like, top 10k is the top 50k is the new top 10k and so on. 60 minutes it's not going to be nothing. You're going to get players subbed off for 50 minutes, 45 minutes, and whereas previously they might have got subbed off at 65 minutes or not at all. So you have to change something. You have to give a certain amount of points, perhaps for starting, to value that. I think you might have to give extra points for starting. So you've got to guess the starters. I don't know. They'll have to do something. Yeah. I
think because obviously I play Gaffer, and I think they do it really well, is that you get a clean sheet for one half and then a clean sheet for a second half.
That's really good.
Something like that, or like an appearance point for one half, appearance points for the second half or something. So because it's going to be ridiculous, and it's going to be ridiculous for those big teams as well. You know, City are going to be a minefield again with five subs. Whereas teams like, I was trying to think, Chelsea, they're an awful rotation team, aren't they? So it's going to be teams we then just don't touch.
Also, the bonus points are going to be all over the shop because, say, a lot of those defenders are just not going to get to 60 minutes. There's a good 30 minutes of playing time they're not going to get. They've got no chance of getting bonus at all. So they have to restructure the bonus points. So I don't know whatever the thresholds are for, getting a certain amount of bonus points for X number of passes and chances created, but they're going to have to alter that because a player over 90 minutes could hit those number of chances. But over 50 minutes, they're not going to. So it's like massive deflation of those players. So you're going to have to, they have to alter it. It's going to take a lot of thought actually, and I think if they just suddenly just keep the structure that we've got with those changes in place, it's going to be, it's possibly not going to work out.
And last one from Ross Johnson, and brilliant Ross Johnson, because I wanted this question to come up. Bench boost. Do you think it should stay or go? Are we going to see chips offered in the first half of the season and the second half too? Example, 2 free hits. So if we talk about bench boost first, I'm just wary of time because I think this is quite a good time to kind of wrap it up. But bench boost, what's your ideas on bench boost?
I hate bench boost because it alters your thinking for a whole bunch of game weeks, whereas a free hit and a wild card just done and dusted. Same with triple captain. I would get rid of it and replace it with something else. I don't. The people that run FPL also run one of the Scandinavian ones, and they've got some amazing chips there. What's the rich uncle one where, and they've got all sorts of,
you get whatever you
there's
want.
all sorts of chips there. They can easily bring a new one in. All out attack was unpopular before they got rid of it.
Yeah.
Bench boost is not popular. Get rid of it. And they can change it with another one. That'd be great.
I will say, so bench boost for me, I think if they're going to keep it next year, and I'd be surprised if they got rid of it, to be honest. I think you have to use it as an opportunity chip. You have to use it as, I'm not going to plan for it. It's just, this week it works really nicely. I'm going to use it this week. And I think that's the best way to use it, because there are some double game weeks you can get to and go, I have 2 or 3 players on double game week on my bench. Let's just use it. And I think, I think you have to try and use it like that, because people get ruined by it.
The skill, the luck element goes up, because then you're basically betting those single game week players. You still got to plan for it. You still got to get a playing bench.
But do you? I don't know. We could talk about it.
It's a tricky one. I mean, it does. On the plus side of it, it's a game, and it presents us all with an issue and a dilemma and things to think about, which is what games are about. So I guess keep it in that regard.
The last thing I'll say on the chips is, be careful what you wish for. This isn't for you, for the chat, by the way. Be careful what you wish for in terms of bringing in really powerful chips. So I've played Gaffer this year, and they have chips in there. It's amazing. It's what makes the game. But they have chips, for instance, like if your team plays at home, they get double points. So if that player plays at home, sounds amazing on paper. But if you've used your chips and then you get a double game week and you've got a team that plays at home twice, they're almost getting quadruple points. And you can get teams that are getting 300 points and other teams that are getting 100, 120 points. And it can be the difference between literally winning a league and not winning a league. And it makes the variance just ridiculous. And I feel like they've actually got it quite good at the moment, where it's not just who plays your chips best, it's who plays the best season. I feel like that's you just need to be careful not to do that.
I think you are right there. You don't want to. You want to do it so that a really good return is an extra 20, 30 points. But if a chip's going to get an extra 100 points, that turns it all on the head. And I saw it on Twitter, on the FPL community, when that KDB haul went in game week 36. And I was fine with it, because I'd got my points from Salah's triple captaincy, and I thought, well, good on them, whatever. I mean, I didn't benefit from it. But some people were, they'd seen their mini league, league go and things like that. They were really angry about it. But that's an anomaly. That's an outlier. We don't normally get an extra 60 points for a triple captaincy chip. That doesn't happen in a normal season. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're done with our questions. Thanks for everyone for joining us in the live chat. Thanks for listening back. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening and watching all season. As far as we know, we're back next season. We hope we are. We've enjoyed it. We'd like more. We've got these great ideas, and we're all going to do much better. And it's going to be a much more exciting season for us in terms of, hopefully, not a double game week every week. And we'll have some strikers as well. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.